The product viewer template in Unreal Engine allows us to quickly create a design review tool that has built-in navigation and interaction already. The project can be used for desktop, VR, or even mobile device projects and is a great way to create an ArchViz or industrial project with a minimum amount of effort. Let's go ahead and create a product viewer project now. As before, we have our new project window open here, and we're going to go to the Unreal Studio tab, select Product Viewer, and then choose the location where we want to save it, and then of course name it, and then hit Create Project. So with it loaded up, we're going to go up to the play button here and just hit that to go ahead and give it a test. Now you can see here it starts out with a custom menu. We've got the Unreal logo here, and we'll look at how we can actually change that in a bit. We also have two buttons here, one for desktop and one for VR. We'll go ahead and choose desktop for now. Once the project starts up, we can see we have an asset here, kind of some gear systems here, as well as a little Unreal shader ball and a light. You'll notice as we hover over the assets, everything is highlighted in yellow. If I click on an asset, the camera zooms in on that asset. As for interaction, if we hold down the right mouse button and then drag the mouse, we will orbit around that asset. We can pan the camera by holding down the middle mouse button and once again dragging. Using the scroll wheel on the mouse, we can zoom in and out. By left-clicking and dragging on the flashlight, we can move the light around. Alright, let's try the VR preview mode, and we'll see what it looks like in VR and some of the extra functionality that we get when we're in VR. So we'll hit the stop button now. Before we can go into VR, we need to change one setting. You're going to find here on the right in the World Outliner everything needed to recreate this scene. If we scroll down towards the bottom, we'll find Product Viewer Collector. Go ahead and left-click on that to select it. Now down in the Details panel on the right here, if we look under Product Viewer, you'll find VR Preview towards the bottom of that section. Go ahead and click it to enable it. Now, of course, in order for this to work, you're going to need to have a VR headset attached to your computer, either an Oculus Rift or an HTC Vive. In my case, I've got an HTC Vive. You'll have to have that already set up, of course, using Steam. And then once we've done that, we can go up to the top here and choose Play in VR. Here you can see my motion controllers. The left hand is for teleporting. If I hold the thumb pad down and then move my finger around in a circle, you can see I can point in the direction that I want to go, then release to teleport. Using the right motion controller trigger, I can hold it down to pick an object up that's highlighted. I can also move the light around. And I can use the motion controller to pick up individual pieces of the assembly, again holding the trigger down when an object is highlighted. I can move objects further away or closer using the thumb pad as well, the top part of the thumb pad and the bottom part of the thumb pad. Now once I've moved some objects and I want to snap them back into place, I can hit the grip button on the right controller to snap them back into place. Using the thumb pad again by tapping it, I can change the X-ray mode of each individual piece, turning it on, off, or even isolating it. Alright, so now in order for the teleport controls to work, as we saw here in VR, we need to make sure that we have a floor mesh that can be used to determine where the viewer can teleport to. So in this case, obviously, we have this floor mesh here. Now, in order to make this our mesh for calculating where we can teleport to, we once again need to go to our World Outliner and select Product Viewer Collector. And then under Product Viewer, we can see here we have two arrays. The first array is called Interactive Route, and that has to do with the actual assets, and we'll look at that in a moment. But the next one says Teleport Surface Route, and it's already got our floor selected. If we open that up here, we can see that the element here, element 0, is set to floor. So if we click the little magnifying glass, we can see that it's selecting the floor there. Now, we could also add other objects that we want to use to be able to teleport to. So if we brought in another floor piece and moved it into position here, we could then add an element by clicking the plus button here. And then we could select that element using the eyedropper tool here to pick it from the scene. or of course we could simply grab it from the drop down here. And this will allow us to now teleport to that location or anywhere within that location as well. One last note about VR: before packaging the scene, we want to make sure though that we disable this VR preview here, as it will cause conflicts with the final output project. Now another thing we can do here is we can add other assets to the scene besides these. Click on the Import DATASMITH button at the top and choose Storage Tank U DATASMITH. We'll put it in the DATASMITH import folder, and in this window simply hit Import. Now we need to position it so that it's off-center. So we'll go ahead and use the outliner here and grab the storage tank root node and move it into position. All right, now in order for this piece of geometry to work, for this assembly to work, we need to specify it as one of the interactive roots. So again, click on Product Viewer Collector, and then under Product Viewer, we need to add a new element to our interactive root array. And then, with this new element, we'll simply select the new actor from the scene. You can use the eyedropper method, or in this case, I'm using the dropdown. So now if we go ahead and play again, all right, and then we can see now if we click on that asset, on that actor in the scene, it zooms in on it, it gets the yellow highlight, and we of course can orbit around it. All that same functionality now works for this asset. In order to have just our storage tank and get rid of the sample assets, the first thing we need to do is to remove the interactive root from array element 0. We'll use this drop-down arrow and choose Delete to do that. Now we can go ahead and begin deleting some of these parts. So we'll select all of the transmission parts, all except for the last one, and then delete them. Next, let's grab the storage tank and position it so that it's centered. Now we can grab the spotlight and bring it into the storage tank node. And then we're going to do the same thing for the Product Viewer Collector. Now we can finally delete the rest of the interactive root parts. Let's go ahead and move the spotlight further out. And likewise, I'm going to select the Product Viewer Collector and move it further away. This is the starting position of the viewer. Now we'll hit play and choose Desktop. All right, so we can look up and move the flashlight around. Of course, we can select a part. We'll go ahead and scroll to zoom out, and we'll orbit around. Another thing we can do is to change the navigation mode here. So under Product Viewer, we see navigation mode is currently set to orbit mode. We can also set it to flying mode. Orbit mode works great for products, smaller items and things like that, perhaps vehicles. But if you want an entire scene, say it's an architectural interior or exterior, you could use flying mode. So let's go ahead and select that and give it a quick test. So here in flying mode, I can use the mouse and keyboard to fly around the scene. So if we use the left mouse, that controls where the camera is pointing. And using the W, A, S, and D keys on the keyboard, we'll also strafe our camera from side to side. That would be A and D. And then W is forward, S is go backwards. Bear in mind that the interaction mode, this dropdown, has no bearing when you're using VR, which, as we saw, uses a teleportation mechanism for moving around. Finally, the logo here on the menu screen can easily be changed. So for that, the first thing we need to do is import a custom logo image. Let's do that now. We'll click on the Import button and browse to our custom PNG file here and bring it right in. Next up, we'll need to load up the PC VR widget. Now you're going to find that in the content browser. If we go to Product Viewer here, then we go into Blueprints, finally into Widgets, you'll find PC VR here. All of these are UI widgets. These are drawn to the screen. If we open up PC VR, we can see that we are now inside the Unreal Motion Graphics tool for creating custom user interfaces. And here's our Unreal logo. Just going to go ahead and select it and then hit the delete key to get rid of it. Now I can drag my new image that I imported, just drag it right onto the screen here. Drag the image so that it's under the canvas panel in the hierarchy, then drag the anchor point to the center of the screen. Then drag the image towards the anchor point. Resize the image to 512 by 512. And then we'll save and compile this. So now when we go ahead and give it another test, we can see that the logo has been replaced. All of the blueprints needed to make the product viewer work are accessible from the content browser. To find them, simply go to the product viewer folder, then click on blueprints. You'll find all the blueprints necessary for making this work here. We won't be covering these blueprints in the course, but feel free to take a look at them by simply double-clicking them to open them up. If you're comfortable using Blueprint in Unreal Engine, all of the code is well commented and you should be able to follow the logic flow in order to modify the system. With the Product Viewer template, getting up and running with a fully interactive project is both fast and simple to achieve. For many design reviews, the Product Viewer may be all you need, and the blueprints provide a great deal of functionality that can be used as a learning tool or even copied into other projects. Let's next look at how to import assets from 3ds Max into Unreal.